discussing Jonathan Edwards' sermon entitled A History of the Work of Redemption, and he wrote this sermon in 1739. The first thing we're going to notice throughout this sermon is it's very providentialist in its undertones. The subtitle is The Work of Redemption is a work that God carries on from the fall of man to the end of the world. So Jonathan Edwards he's looking at the Bible and history as this work of redemption, this grand narrative of God, man has fallen, but man ultimately will be redeemed in the end when God establishes his millennium on the earth. So throughout this history of Christianity, we're going to see the struggle that Edwards portrays between the kingdom of Christ, which would be made up of the Protestant Christians, and the kingdom of Satan, which will change throughout time and who represents it, but he's focusing on the Roman Empire and the formation of the Catholic Church. He's highlighting how throughout time Christians have been persecuted, like under Nero, but ultimately the remnant has remained. God has preserved the Bible despite people trying to destroy it. He talks about the conversion of Constantine as one of the high points of Christianity, where Christian judges and priests and politicians have been established throughout the empire that was once persecuting Christians. So even though Christianity might have been on the bottom, might have been struggling, now it's growing. It's becoming more of an influence over society. So he's looking at all these events through the lens of Old Testament and New Testament prophecies. He's saying that ultimately these prophecies being fulfilled, they're really evidence that Christianity is true, that the God of the Bible is in fact the only God. Mark Rogers emphasizes that this hope that is prevalent in this redemptive history is spurring Jonathan Edwards to spread the gospel. The apocalypse it's coming, and we can see it in Edwards' writing on the Revelation, the book of Revelation, his commentaries, that it's so important. The end of the world is coming. We need to spread the gospel to all these people. Corin Blau notes that this prophecy and miracles defense is one way that he is reacting to the deism that is emerging in the 18th century. People are saying that those things didn't happen, they shouldn't be taken literally. But Edwards really defends these prophecies and scriptures as evidence that Christianity is true. Now, it should be noted that Edwards doesn't simply rely on the Bible. Even though he does believe it's his ultimate authority, he is open to other works to study historic events. He, in this sermon, he cites or paraphrases several classical and church histories that have been written, such as Tertullian and Pliny, Plutarch, Eusebius, the dialogue with Trypho, and of course the Old Testament and New Testament passages. So he isn't simply this historian who's just focused on the Bible, this preacher who's just preaching damnation. No, he is a well-read man. He knows what's going on in society. He's marking these events. He's saying, okay, well, the kingdom of Christ won here, but the satanic forces are prevailing here, showing that this next prophecy is going to occur. So he's really looking at the world through this biblical lens, that these prophecies, this one has been fulfilled, this one it's in the process, and we need to keep spreading the gospel to people so that they can come into the saving knowledge of grace in order to spur on the kingdom of Christ with the millennium. So we'll look into that more in the future.